Kaylee, you very well know that my favorite movie of all time is The Princess Bride.
Heck yeah, it is.
It is. I love The Princess Bride. I love Carrie Elwes. I love everything about that movie. I love everything about it. I quote it far too often, including this one time when I was in Australia and I saw a wombat and I screamed, "It's a rodent of unusual size!"
That's a marsupial.
Yeah, well, same. I've heard it both ways. So, because of that, I started picking up on things in this episode that, in my brain, became Princess Bride references. And I like this because of a special guest star that we get later in the series.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to point them out along the way. Listeners, if you think I'm crazy, or if you 100% agree with me, I would love for you to reach out and let me know what you think.
Email us.
At our email that is toblueberrypodcast@gmail.com. And I would love to discuss that with you. I would love to do an entire episode around the Princess Bride references of Psych in general. But yeah, it was.
Oh yeah,
it was a whole
we're
thing
gonna
for
get
me.
there.
Oh yes.
In an episode weirdly devoid of pop culture references, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna say we're running with it, and we're not sorry. There are supposed to be so many that we can't imagine them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, they're there by virtue of the format of the show.
We do, however, get a Henry making a pop culture reference in this episode, and I really like that. I like when, like, Henry and Lassie and Chief Vic make the pop culture references. It makes me happy. Kaylee keeps looking at me, everyone, like I'm a crazy person, but I promise I'm not.
No, I'm trying really hard to remember what one falls out of his mouth, and I can't remember. I feel like a crazy person.
We will get there, I promise.
Okay.
You ready to start the episode?
Showtime.
This is...
To the Blueberry!
I am Alexis, and I am a real-life Gus.
I am Kaylee, and I am the real-life Shawn.
We decided to start this podcast a little while ago because we needed a good reason to talk to one another every week.
Every week.
Talking about our favorite shows seemed to be a great way to do it, which is Psych.
It really helps us pace out watching it again, too.
It does, yes. And I have so much been appreciating how you and I have been looking at this show in a way that I never would have looked at it before because of this podcast. Like, picking up on those references that maybe weren't even there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm digging it. So, very good. They're open to post-Psych continuing to rewatch podcasts because Castle, right?
Right.
Talked about that one time?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. This is Season 2, Episode 14, Dislodged.
I like it. Simple.
Yeah. I get the name. I wish it was more cleverer. I wish it was cleverer. I wish it was more clever.
Sure.
Okay.
I've heard it both ways. I think the way I made it clever to myself was like, the man who has been murdered has been dislodged.
Okay.
Like, yeah. But, as we so often do, this episode starts in 1987 with a flashback.
Shawn and Gus are hiding underneath this little, like, blanket fort, if you will.
Okay, but what are they using as their fire? So they have a little contraption that has flames in it, Alexis. What is this monstrosity?
It is a portable kerosene grill. Kerosene? No.
Propane?
Propane grill. And I only know this because I have used and had that exact same grill when I was in college.
Danger.
I lived in this janky apartment. We lived on the second floor, and we had that grill because we wanted to grill food. And we thought it would be a good idea to grill on our neighbor's roof, which we could access from our living room window.
And did not have permission to be on?
It was the same house. Like, they were our downstairs neighbor, so maybe I did.
Oh.
I don't know. My roommate and I went outside and started grilling pork chops, and we were really excited. And while we were outside, the window slammed closed, and we were stuck on the roof.
I do not remember this story.
Oh, yes. Our neighbors came by and chucked us a crowbar, and we crowbarred our way back through the window and got back in the house.
Note to self, carry a crowbar.
Or at least learn how to catch one when you're standing on a roof. Thank you, Daddy-O. I appreciate that. They're wearing towels as capes, and the words that I got were Kiwi alaza that they were saying.
Oh, the chanting?
I don't know what
the
you
weird.
heard.
Yeah, the captions literally said children chanting. And I was like, that's creepy. Yeah, I wrote, is that a propane fire? And also babies in capes. And they're wearing their patented plaid and stripes.
Of course.
And Henry, who's wearing a much better wig than he sometimes wears. I'm giving props to the wig department this episode. He's like, what's going on here? And they tell them
a club.
A secret club.
Burning down the house club?
It's a Shawn and Gus club.
A Gus and Shawn club.
Henry says, okay, well, do you have bylaws for this club? You have to have rules and regulations because I'm Henry and I suck the fun out of everything.
Okay, here are the rules. No girls.
Under 12 only. No old guys.
And from Gus, they have to have a love of correct grammar.
What? What's that rule? I don't need this. And Shawn quits. And Gus says, well, who needs you and your misplaced prepositions? And then he turns to Henry and he goes, do you want to join a club?
I love little baby Gus.
He was savage. He was like, fine, Shawn, leave. I don't even care.
We cut to present day, and the boys are having breakfast, lunch, or brunch.
I wrote brunch. I definitely wrote brunch.
Okay. It's the middle of the day, though. We know that for sure. And Henry had called Shawn to cancel a camping trip.
The Mountain Man trip?
Okay.
I don't know.
He canceled it because he was sick, and he sounded so sick.
He even sounded pale, apparently.
How do you sound pale, Shawn?
Suddenly we hear Jim Croce singing Bad Bad Leroy Brown, and we look over, and whose truck is that, Alexis?
It's Bad Bad Leroy Henry's. That is such a perfect music cue. I love it. Because he just lied to Shawn about it, and then he's driving down the road singing Bad Bad Leroy Brown because he feels like Bad Bad Leroy Henry. Or I guess it'd probably be Bad Bad Henry Brown, but still.
So here's the thing. Shawn was just talking about how much lighter he felt, like a weight has been lifted because he didn't have to go on this Mountain Man trip where his dad was going to drive him crazy for an entire weekend. And he's real upset that Henry's a lying liar. So, he instantly gets up from the table and runs, forcing Gus to follow him because he wants to follow Henry.
They follow him to the Monarch Lodge, which is a, pseudo, Lions Club or something like that.
I was like, oh, I think we have a Elks Lodge near me.
Yeah, I think that's a thing.
I don't know. Anywho, we see Henry going in and he does a little secret handshake beboppy thing with the doorman. And Shawn gets up and runs out the car because he's going to get in there. And Gus is like, how?
Gus said, how are you going to get in there? They're a clandestine society. What a good use of the word clandestine, can I just say?
Oh yeah, much appreciated. Because Shawn watched the secret handshake from afar, he now knows it. And he gives all the moves little nicknames as he's doing them. And then he gets in. And Gus just walks in after him, sort of holding part of his brunch still. He's like...
Oh, wait. You probably don't want to shake hands with him.
Yeah, he just inseminated an Appaloosa.
I had to look up what an Appaloosa was.
It's a horse, right?
It is.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, no time to wash up. So Gus just breezes on by. Inside, we set eyes first on a creepy portrait of President Truman that is never commented on, but we quickly move on to naming the other people in the other portraits in the Monarch Lodge.
Because Gus knows who all of them are.
A lot of local bigwigs here.
Shawn sees one of them and goes, dude, Moby's a monarch.
It's not Moby.
They see another portrait, and Shawn said, I'm pretty sure that's Chuck from the Wonder Years.
Guess what? It was.
It was Chuck from the Wonder Years. It was, in fact, a portrait of writer Andy Berman, writer of the show Andy Berman, who did, in fact, play Chuck on the Wonder Years.
Woot woot.
And now, Dule Hill is on the Wonder Years.
Yeah, he is. On the new Wonder Years.
The new one, where he is, I don't know how else to describe him, but yeah.
Be cool.
Be cool.
I didn't write down any of the other bigwigs. Is there anybody else we have to mention that's fun?
Well, not until we see the portrait of Henry.
With hair and a leisure suit collar. Like,
oh, he's in it.
Those angles are sharp, baby.
They then hear Henry speaking. They walk into the room, and there are all of these people standing around wearing what I called black hoods that we eventually find out are actually violet hoods.
Yes, they are dark purple violet hoods.
With a dead guy in the middle of the floor.
Yeah. Henry is telling the one guy, look, you need to call the cops here. And he's like, I did. I called you. And Henry's like, not only am I retired...
A policeman and a brother.
A brother. I call these guys bros a lot going forward,
nice.
Just to warn everyone. Henry's like, I'm retired from both. Look, we'll use my phone and call the SBPD. So they walk off again.
Shawn clocked that there was some powdery stuff on dead guy's face.
Cha, cha. But this is where we get Shawn calling his father the lying liar from Liarsburg. Because he's supposed to be so upstanding. Woo! Look at that gorgeous coloring book page.
I do, in fact, have a coloring book page that says, my dad is a lying liar from Liarsburg. But the actual quote was, yes, it means my dad, Mr. Integrity, is nothing more than a lying liar from Liarsville. Bill, Liarsburg. Ah! Okay, I said it enough. We're done.
Gus catches sight of somebody across the room that he knows. He's like, ooh, the doctor. So we see Dr. Downs, and we get Smooth Gus.
Always Smooth Gus.
Always Smooth Gus. Because Dr. Downs apparently just left, or canned his rep. Gus is nothing if not opportunistic, where his sales reptitude is concerned. So Gus walks on over, carefully avoiding the dead body between the two of these guys.
Henry and Shawn are having this little aside, and finally Shawn just looks at Henry and said, he was murdered. We get Lassiter and Juliet.
We're in the Lassie-mobile.
Lassiter got the call. Juliet had just gotten Lassiter coffee, which is Buzz's job, and there's no Buzz in this episode, which is sad.
Okay, here's the thing. They get the call over the radio, and it says it's an 1144 deceased male.
Did they?
It is not an 1144. It is never even a suspected 1144.
Fascinating.
But we do get another reference to the fact that Lassie takes his coffee with 3 creams and 4 sugars.
And diabetes.
Like a psychopath.
They're back at the lodge, and Shawn is looking around, and he's like, nobody is broken up about this. Nobody seems sad about the fact that this guy is dead. And Henry just bluntly said he was not a very likable guy. His name was Arthur Holmstrom. And I like to call him Art throughout the episode.
I totally wrote Art. So this is when we get the Chairman Meow. But the head bro who called Henry originally walks back over and he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry I dragged you down here. It was just like, did we do something wrong? He was under that hood for 20 minutes. Did he suffocate?
You just skipped Henry's pop culture reference.
I did?
Shawn said, tell me the truth. What really happened to my cat, Chairman Meow? And Henry said, do you want the truth?
Oh.
And Shawn said, yeah, I want the truth. And he said, you can't handle the truth.
And then they both just sort of paused and they looked weird about it.
They look at each other. Ah, it's beautiful.
You're right. You're right. Henry says that the bro is being ridiculous because they've done this ceremony so many times and nobody suffocates under these hoods. They're cloth. They're breathable.
They did kind of casually recognize that Shawn is Henry's son, making
we love
him
a
a
legacy here. Yes.
Shawn starts to try to do a psych out, and Henry immediately stops him.
He's fully, no, and pulls him away. Love it.
In come Lassiter and Juliet.
Lassie is so dazed. He's so happy. He even says hi to Shawn before it dawns on him that he's saying hi to Shawn.
And then he's really mad that Shawn's there.
He just goes, no. You can't be here. What the hell are you doing here? And Shawn says, relax. My dad was a member. That's why I'm here.
How can your dad be a member? They have a rule against law enforcement officers being members.
Lodge Rule AB 456 bars any law enforcement from joining the illustrious monarchs or whatever. And we get this guy coming over that goes, That's basically just a dummy rule to bar undesirables, like you, or anyone like you, who has been previously married to my daughter.
Mr. Parker
Dad-in-law.
is now the head-most monarch man thing.
What's it? A high-most patriarch?
High-most patriarch.
Which sounds like a villain title if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. So Juliet pulls Lassiter aside and she's like, hey, Lassie, should you really be on this case? You have a personal connection to our suspect, and I am worried about what might happen. And Lassie's like, no, I have to solve this case. He's a little bit of a hero complex going on right here.
We get a cut back to Gus making his good impression on Dr. Downs, who even says, like, given the circumstances, the fact that you're making such an impression on me is really saying something. And this is just more of his sales reptitude. You gotta brush your shoulder off on that, Guster.
Henry tries to protect Shawn and Gus in the most Henry way possible, which is to be mean about it. And he just looked at the gentleman and said, stay away. These guys are not to be messed with. I'm serious.
Shawn notices at this point that the portraits on the wall of, like, the hierarchy of leaders is already missing Arnold's portrait. Well, I mean, his portrait was High-Most Patriarch.
Right.
And...
No. His portrait was at step number 5, and it had been removed from step number 5 and put at High-Most Patriarch because that night was his, I'm going to use the word, coronation. I don't know what the word is.
They are monarchs.
Yeah.
Henry's kind of scooting the boys out, and we pass right by the portraits again. And while Henry's lecturing them, he accidentally notices that he's standing next to his portrait, and he's very preoccupied staring at his portrait's hair.
And then he rubs his head and walks away.
We go to the psych office. Gus, it's nighttime, and Gus is on the phone, ballin'.
He's using his customer service voice, and I only know that that's his customer service voice because I also have a customer service voice that I use somewhat regularly. It's really helpful to use with people.
Yeah, and not only that, he uses a stupid phrase like, I'll be there with bells on.
Which is also a phrase I use.
Absolutely. I mean, I say a lot of, like, really tired language and, like, oh, yeah, for sure, I completely understand. And, like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, I'm just trying to move things along, people.
Yeah.
Shawn is making fun of him for using this phrase, and Gus says it's because he's a closer, which I took as a Glengarry Glen Ross reference, but only because there's a really famous monologue. And in the movie version, Alec Baldwin gives it after berating Jack Lemmon because coffee is for closers. A really boring male-only play, and I will die on this hill. It's not worth seeing. Fight!
Yeah. That's not a movie. Just based on your description, I'm probably not into it.
It's depressing.
Shawn was doing research and found out that Art died during the Sacred Star Ceremony. That's what the coronation is actually called. The Sacred Star Ceremony.
He's on a website that is, like, exposing secret societies, and he's watching this video, and Gus comes over and is like, oh my God, these guys look so evil. White men in hoods.
They're violet.
That's how it starts, Shawn.
Then there's someone outside, and they think it's a scary lodge guy.
I told you, it's those creepy lodge guys. Your dad was right.
No, it's not.
So they sneak. They're about to attack whoever's about to enter their domain, and it turns out to be Lassiter. And they're just, like, acting casual with a lamp in their hand.
When Lassiter comes in, they start to have a psych out moment, and they tell Lassie that they're pretty sure that this guy was murdered. And Lassiter starts to agree with them. He's like, I think it could have been murder. I think that could have been what happened. They are goading Lassiter to get him to hire them.
Well, they know that he's just keeping himself from hiring them. It's so obvious why he's there, because he's making up lies about being in the neighborhood and seeing the lights on. And they're like, come on, Lassiter. This is a safe place. You're surrounded by men who love you. And he goes, right, Gus? And Gus goes,
I love you, Lassiter.
And he goes, stone face, Lassiter, I love you.
That's it.
Lassiter says, okay, yes, I want to hire you, but I can't pay you. Maybe I can cover your expenses?
$1,500.
I thought it was $15,000 a day.
Okay, $15,000 a day.
Shawn says, this hand near his shoulder is them, and this is me. And this other hand is going under his first hand. And he goes, flying under their radar. Because Lassiter wants him to make sure he's being discreet.
It is imperative that you keep a low profile.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, also, this is Gus down here, because he can't fly. Sorry.
The scene cuts to Shawn being initiated into the Monarch Brotherhood.
The newest brother! His smug face is hilarious. It looks so culty.
Does he have, like, his arms out while they're all applauding to him? Or am I making that up?
I think he's just posing like he later poses for his portrait. It's like a lot of, like, shoulders back and, like, tilted head. Like, smolder.
After the commercial break, we come back. Shawn is just being weird about how easy the initiation was. It should have been more aggressive.
What? No brimstone? No crab walk? And they're like, to the bar!
Gus comes in, and it's, quote, a business as usual for him because he's using his sales reptitude.
Well, he's like, isn't it weird that no one's sad and it's business like usual around here? Like, that's not striking anyone else is not okay. So we get another look at the portrait hierarchy on the wall there. And then, well, his place has already been replaced in the portraits too, Mr. Art, the dead guy. But then we see all the philanthropy plaques, and all of them are like, for kids, computers for kids, clothes for kids. And we get like, these guys are like super donators, like mega ultra do-gooders. So why murder? Maybe it was for the kids?
Oh. They walk up and they see the shroud from the star ceremony, or the flying star ceremony, the sacred star ceremony. There it is. Shawn's just kind of being Shawn, and he's like, "Oh, the guy died in this shroud. This is so weird." And he tries to get a fist bump from the security guard, and the security guard denies him.
Well, he thought it was going to be Gus, and then Gus wasn't there, and the guy had no idea what was going on because he's super old. And then he finds Gus across the room impressing a group of doctors again, so then he walks over there to be a really bad wingman. He says the weirdest thing. He tries to give Gus props for being like some kind of genius MacGyver, and he goes, he once removed a boil from his own thigh using only a paperclip and a warm can of Sprite. And everyone just sort of stops, and that's the way that scene ends. As they're leaving, Gus further portrays his own sales reptitude by running away from Shawn again to go talk to another doctor.
On their way out, Lassiter calls and wants to know kind of what's going on. And Shawn said there's got to be something weird. He was fifth in line, and then he was the highest, most blah, blah, and then he was dead. And it seemed like there was something suspicious going on there.
And then Lassiter says, are you sure you're flying under the radar?
He's like, oh yeah, members are beyond suspicion.
Members?
Shawn hears the motorcycle pass, and then he hears the motorcycle pass through the phone.
So he starts creeping around, and he finds where Lassie's parked, and he starts going, I'm getting some very distinct sensations that you might be very close. Like, you might be around the corner. And
No, what are you talking about? I'm not here.
Lassiter starts to put his car in gear and, like, get his seatbelt on to run away.
They end up in the car together because Shawn straight up caught him. And Juliet calls. Lassiter's trying to hide what's going on and is like, oh, I'm out having lunch.
Ooh, bring me a turkey and avocado.
And then she hears Shawn. And she's like, are you having lunch with Shawn?
Lassiter's like, what do those blood results say?
The toxicology report was odd, to say the least. There were trace elements of a toxin that was similar to the Brazilian vine snake venom.
Okay, so he got bit by a snake? Except, no, because there's no puncture marks or any wounds to be had on this man. Maybe a little bit of irritation on his skin, on his face, but that's it.
Correct. And then Juliet gets really confused why Shawn is involved in this situation whatsoever.
She's like, yeah, on a case he hasn't been hired for, Lassiter, why are you sharing information with him? Because she finds out she's on speakerphone, and Shawn's asking her all these questions also.
And then Lassiter does the fake, I'm breaking up, I need to hang up on you.
I'm going...
Juliet did to him in the Rob of My Baby episode. So, I love it.
Wasn't that long ago. We're back in the psych office.
Oh, and Henry's mad.
Can't believe you joined the lodge. He's like, too many powerful people in one room is dangerous, Shawn. This is not a game.
Henry wisdom right there. He just wants the police to handle the situation. Let the police do the job. You do not have to do this.
Gus says, we're working with the police. Shawn says, sort of.
It's a discreet case.
Oh, discreet. Uh-huh. He's like, yeah, Dad, I'm working on a theory. It involves a snake bite without a snake bite. He was poisoned with snake venom.
So, an invisible snake.
Henry's super not sold on this. And then Henry makes a little straw wrapper snake and then pours Coke on it. And there's like a little chart, and he's like, you need to follow the pecking order because there's a structure of power within this group of too many powerful people. Like,
Shawn is just like, what? And Henry storms out and says, grow up.
Shawn is upset because now there's Coke all over everything.
He goes, me grow up? A grown man makes a crawly snake and I'm the one who needs to grow up?
So then we're in the Blueberry. And...
are we outside Parker's warehouse?
yes. I keep calling him Irv because his name is Irving.
That's fair.
I never wrote down his last name. So Shawn is like, yeah, we're kind of waiting for an opportunity to break in. And Gus is like, I'm not doing jail time for this. I can get us in. Shawn's like, we've been sitting here for this long and suddenly you can get us in?
Oh, wait. We are not outside Parker's.
Yeah, we are.
Parker's warehouse, are we?
Yeah, we are. Because then we're inside with Doris, the receptionist.
Yes.
And Gus is using his sales reptitude to charm her, well, not her pants off, but charm their way through the door. He introduces Shawn as his friend, associate, William Zane.
The name's Guster. Burton Guster. This is my associate, William Zane.
I'm here to visit Irving Parker for a birthday visit. It's not his birthday.
It's my birthday, the big 2-9.
You know, not one of the important ones. Meanwhile, Shawn's over there just pointing out, like, her Sudoku answers, and she's all about it. She's like, ooh, okay, 3 here.
Gus wants to, quote, surprise Mr. Parker for Gus's birthday, which doesn't make any sense to me, but okay.
No, but he's so sure of himself. It's just hypnotizing. And so Doris is like, oh, okay. And then Shawn is still working on her Sudoku upside down, and Gus yells, Billy! And they walk through the door.
As they're walking out, they go into the warehouse, and Gus is still talking about his sales reptitude. And he told Shawn that it comes in all flavors.
Yeah, he's like, that was also sales reptitude? Like, what was happening there? So, it's manipulative networking.
They walked past a giant pot, and Shawn said, dude, the world's first crock pot.
Irving the Grump is on a piece of equipment driving around. Forklift? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think it's a forklift.
And he's like, what are you guys doing here? And their cover story is that since Shawn just got inducted, he was wondering if Irv could, make things happen so that Gus can be inducted. Haze him a little bit, get him on the inside with us. But Shawn is also clocking the shipping codes on some of these boxes and big wooden things. Honestly, it looks like the Ark of the Covenant from Indiana Jones could be hiding in this warehouse somewhere, the way they pack these things.
They end up getting kicked out, and in the next scene, while the boys are having a walk and talk, we find out that those shipping labels are all labels to Brazilian airports. Gus said, how do you know that those are Brazilian airports?
Gus, you know I lived in an airport for over a month.
That was Tom Hanks in Terminal.
Did we get I heard it both ways?
No,
What?
Shawn says same difference. And
Oh.
I My next line is, why not? I've heard it both ways. That would have been perfect.
I mean, my brain filled it in, so I agree. We're at the SBPD. Shawn walks in to sort of update Lassiter, and he's like, also, I've got some bad news about what I've found out. Then we look over, and Juliet is, how do we put this? Walking in the perp.
Which happens to be Irving Parker.
Lassiter's face is just like so full of dread. I just wrote, Grumpy Pants is in the building.
Parker does about half of his business in Brazil, where that venomous snake is from, and so he thinks that's a pretty good reason why Irving might be the murderer.
Yeah, he's telling Lassiter, like, man, the evidence is pointing at him. Like, he was number 2 when What's-His-Face became High-Most Patriarch all of a sudden, and Brazil, and the murder venom. So, Jules is like, Lassiter, I really think you might want to step away at this point and let me or someone else handle the interrogation.
No, Lassie with his hero complex.
He insists that he can hang.
To question him. Yep.
Yeah. But he says, don't you dare tell the chief.
And then the phone rings and Juliet answers it. Lassiter's desk. And guess who it is?
His ex-wife. Former wife. Estranged
Mrs.
wife.
Lassiter. She is very upset and thinks that he's doing this just to spite her. To which he responds, no, this is not because I want the barbecue.
You already got the golf club. Lassiter, while he's on the phone, Jules and Shawn have a little aside. And basically about Grumpy Pants being Grumpy Pants, not coming easily. And then Lassiter gets off the phone and says, Juliet, I will meet you down there. You go see him in interrogation first. And then he takes Shawn aside and says, you need to solve this for real because Irving Parker did not do this. He can't have done this. Get on it.
Sure, he might hobble their spirits and crush their souls and dance on the flaming ashes of their broken marriage, which he had a part in ending, but he wouldn't kill anyone.
That's saying a lot.
And then Lassiter tells Shawn to workshop it. Figure out what's going on. It wasn't Parker. Workshop it.
Workshop it?
In interrogation.
It's a very quiet scene.
Yeah, Lassiter is making this weird eye contact, and there's this very, like, music playing. The music cues in this episode crack me up. And this is where I first noticed it and first started making note of it. But, like, the music is just kind of a really, really down music. Like, we can feel Lassiter's pain through the sounds that we're hearing.
But he's looking through the one-way glass at Juliet sitting with Irv, and then Irv turns and stares right through the glass like he knows Lassie's back there.
Yeah, that intense, weird eye contact is, yeah, it's weird.
So, back at the psych office.
And they're writing on their glass numbers board again.
And Shawn says, I don't think reverse engineering this crime is working because everything still points to Irv.
The Didits won 12-0.
Mm-hmm. Gus says,
maybe we should be looking at other members of the Monarch.
Yeah, like this guy died and no one batted an eye. No one was sad for even a second. I was there shamelessly pushing product, repping my sales Reptitude, networking like a mofo, and no one cared. It was tasteless.
Shawn agrees, but there's something much more important that we have to do first.
He's going for his lodge portrait sitting.
And he asks if they would put tigers or pumas at his feet.
And then Gus is looking angry in the background.
And he looks at Gus and said, this is for posterity, which is what I'm calling our first Princess Bride reference. So roll with me back to 1987 when The Princess Bride came out. I don't know. That date check me somebody, that's fine. When the six-fingered man has Wesley on the death machine, he asks Wesley to be completely honest with how it feels, because this is for posterity.
It's a scientific experiment, Alexis.
I may be deep diving. Okay.
Okay,
They
so then...
ask the guy who's doing the portrait why Art's portrait has already been taken down, and the painter said that, it was returned to his house with the rest of his stuff.
Am I wrong, or does Shawn say, hey, let's get a puma right over here by my shoulder, and have Gus's magic head superimposed into the puma's mouth.
Yep, that's it.
Gus is appalled by the suggestion, so we're gone. We're to the blueberry and to the dead guy's house.
Yes, at Art's house. And the boys are trying to be all sneaky.
The motion lights.
Right. They hop onto the sidewalk over the bushes. The motion lights kick on, and we get this beautiful sound effect of like, da-da! And they jump off, and it gets quiet. And they were like, okay, this time do it slowly. And they jump again, da-da! That sound cue is so on point for that part of the episode.
They jimmy the lock using a credit card and a paperclip?
No. Shawn said, say what you might about a credit card and a paperclip, but sometimes locks just have to be owned. And he holds up a screwdriver. And Gus is like,
Gus
dude,
is
that's
like,
a screwdriver. I think it was unlocked. Stay
with me here. Because as soon as I saw Shawn holding that screwdriver, my brain went, Doctor Who! I don't think that's what that was, but I wanted it to be.
I like that. I'm agreeable to that. I think that's wonderful.
Shawn insists that the door was not unlocked, and they go upstairs. And the guy was a widower, so it's an empty house. But they hear something, and they're like, well, no one else is here. And then they hear breaking glass, and Shawn goes, ha-ha, I locked the door back. Because Gus was also giving him crap about whether or not he locked the door. He's like, this proves it.
And then they try to hide, and again, absurd, trying to hide. Like, at one point, Gus is just curled up on top of the sofa chair, and Shawn is hiding behind the fire air pumper thing. And then
the bellows?
Is that what it's called?
The fire bellows?
Bellows, yes, okay. And then Shawn moves to a different couch, and then Gus tries to hide behind it again. And then finally they both just kind of fly on the floor as we see this ominous man coming up the steps with black pants, kind of sharp shoes, and a pair of gloves.
Yeah, so we're under the desk, we find out, and we're sort of pretzeled together. And this man is making a full-on mess, ransacking this room.
Shawn said, breaking into offices, no one respects anything anymore.
Well, he also noticed, very briefly, when the man was standing very close to the desk, that there was a tiny little scuff mark, like almost a pinprick size, on this man's otherwise sharp shoe.
Exit bad guy. The boys start looking back around. It seemed like he did not find what he was looking for. And then they see the safe. And it's a Martin 16. And there's just...
Shawn says, come on, Gus.
There's just no way Gus is going to crack it. It's not going to happen.
Aren't you 18 months into a subscription to Safe Cracker magazine?
He gives it a shot. He tries to crack it, and he does his little safe cracking ritual that includes like a crouching tiger, hidden dragon thing.
Also, a few Michael Jackson noises.
Always. Finally, Shawn looks at a picture of Art's wife.
The guy's wife. He has pictures of this beautiful wife all over. Like, he was a widower. Mm-hmm. And he has all her old pictures all over his office.
And Shawn goes, try 362436.
And it fails. And Gus is like, oh, great idea, Shawn. And then he looks down at the picture and he goes, you gotta work on your estimating skills. 36, 24, 38. Like, damn, girl, okay.
It opens, and they find these ledgers that are put away. And they look kind of identical. There's two of them. They look kind of identical, but they're noticing differences pretty quickly. So it's like, computers for kids, $25,000. But this one says computers for kids, $35,000.
And then Shawn's like, what are all these little creepy little codes? He wrote it in some, what is it?
He wrote it in some ancient language. Or some ancient hieroglyphics.
And Gus says, no, this is doctor's shorthand. This means this, and this means this.
They come to the conclusion, well, Gus does, because Gus is always there for the win, that it wasn't Arthur that was skimming, because the handwriting on the sticky notes that were obviously from Arthur do not match the handwriting in the doctor's shorthand that are in the ledgers. And they were like, somebody else is skimming from the top, but Arthur figured it out who it was and was likely holding them against them. Shawn's like, how sure are you that this is actually what happened? And Gus is like, 85, 86%. And Shawn said, we've gone on much less, which is what I believe to be our second Princess Bride reference. Again, let's go back in time. We have Miracle Max and Inigo Montoya's in Miracle Max's shop, and they put the alive pill into Wesley, and Miracle Max says that it's about 50%, and Inigo responds, we've done with much less. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. I'm into it. I like it.
No, I fully am on board with that. Anywho's.
In interrogation.
Lassie is exhausted, but he goes from being exhausted nice guy to a hard ass real fast on Irv because he's giving him nothing. They've been here for ages. Does he give us a time?
It kind of seems like, I don't think so, but it kind of seems like Mr. Parker is just like making fun of Lassiter at this point. And so finally Lassie claps back and is like, I suggest you cut the crap. Are we clear? And then our entire demeanor changes. Like, he finally respects Lassiter.
It's very grudging respect moment, yeah.
And he said, listen, Art convinced me to let him ahead of me in line. That's how he got to the number 1 spot so quickly. He must have convinced all the other guys somehow. He had health problems, and I just wanted to help the guy out and let him be the highest, most patriarch or whatever.
He was getting worse, and this was probably his only shot.
That's it.
4 or 5 doctor's offices later, we're back with Shawn and Gus.
Oh, I just want to point out that Mr. Parker's last kind of alibi, if you will, was that he has not traveled outside of the country for the last 3 years. And the reason is because the doctor told him that he wasn't allowed because of his stress, which is implied that it's from Lassiter and his daughter's marriage. That ends with
falling apart.
Him saying, okay, are we done? And Lassiter goes, we're done when I say we're done. And then it's just a beat, and he goes, we're done.
We're done. 4 doctor's offices later with Shawn and Gus, they have not found a match to the handwriting they saw in the doctored ledger.
Plus, I'm tired of reading highlights for kids. They always hide the apple in the bike.
We are at the last place, and Gus is like, I'm killing it today. I'm gonna keep doing my job, even if it doesn't give you what you want for this case. And Shawn is like, is it really so important to be pushing, what cream does he reference here?
Some sort of gelatinous something.
I don't know. Anyway, we walk into Dr. Downs' office, and Shawn drops to the floor before the receptionist can see him, and then he pushes Gus around the side of this sort of like oblong counter so that he'll keep the receptionist looking in the other direction and distract her so Shawn can go and snoop on this doctor's office.
The first thing Shawn sees are these pictures of just like groups of people wearing what stereotypically you might consider to be like native African clothing. And he kind of sees...
So the guy's like a Doctors Without Borders moment?
Yeah, kind of. We kind of just see these pictures. Shawn goes snooping. Gus's sales reptitude is over. And the woman that he's talking to is not having any of it.
Oh, she's super not charmed by any flavor of his sales reptitude.
While Shawn is snooping, the first thing he finds are these gloves that have these weird kind of crocheted wrists on them that would leave a mark. And he remembers seeing those marks on Dr. Down's hands when Dr. Down was shaking Gus's hand at the original murder, which makes sense. I mean, it's his hands, it's his gloves. Okay, I got that.
And then we see an article in another part of the office. It's like a newspaper clipping that says, powdered vaccines save lives.
Gus is still failing to schmooze this lady. But in the meantime, Shawn does find a handwriting match. He finds
on the calendar.
He finds the guy's calendar, and he matches it in his, perfect brain to the handwriting that was on the ledgers.
Shawn goes, call Lassie right now. I've totally figured this out.
Juliet picks up the phone. We're headed to 1385 Grandeur. Spy music starts to play here, along with the screeching tire sounds.
Okay, so back at the lodge, Dr. Downs is raising a chalice
to absent friends.
Like our dear departed Art Holmstrom. Irv is sitting on a throne.
Yes. As the highest, most butt pincher. I don't know what. I still can't figure out.
I love that you refuse to learn it. I fully support.
Shawn,
it's a stupid title.
It is. Shawn has this really weird thing where he goes, but also we're here to bear witness, along with the magic head of Gus, the wisdom of Baum, and that stuffed creature. Arthur Holmstrom was murdered. Baum was this, like, stuffed owl? Hawk.
He was a taxidermied owl.
Yeah. And then...
The wisdom of Baum!
the creature was a weasel?
I thought it was a badger.
Something in that family.
And then he starts playing Duck Duck Murderer as he goes around the room, pointing at each of the monarchs in turn, going, duck, duck, duck.
Lots of ducks, and finally we get a goose pointed straight at Dr. Downs. He said that Art had found out that he had been skimming off the top of the books from the charitable events, and he was using it to blackmail Dr. Downs into becoming the highest, most... When the blackmail worked, Dr. Downs could not handle it and had to make sure that the fact that he was skimming would never get out. And in order to do that, he killed him. He immediately sees the same mark that Kaylee was talking about earlier on Dr. Downs' shoes and screams, "It was the shroud! There was a powder form of the snake venom in the shroud. And you use that powdered form as part of an anti-venom that you do for your charitable work abroad."
So there's a thing that he keeps doing before he gives his little psych out thing.
Please.
Like, when he's getting, like, a message from the spirits, he, like, clutches his head as he does, and he'll say something like, "By the shores of Gitchigume!" And then he'll give you the breakdown. And then Dr. Downs goes, "Oh, that's preposterous. He died of natural causes." And then, again, hand to head, he's like, "By the halls of Montezuma! You were very careful to wear your protective gloves while you administered the poison."
Finally, Downs goes, "I have nothing to say. Speak to my lawyer." And he starts to leave. But,
Then he's arrested by Juliet.
yeah, it doesn't work. And then Shawn gives the credit for finding the murderer to Lassiter. And I love that. He refers to Lassiter as Santa Barbara's own highest, most patriarch. High most patriarch. There it is.
Yeah, he gets like... Okay, well, they leave, and Irv kind of gives him like this nod. He's like, well, that was a pretty good solve, and you're not gonna, be my son-in-law anymore, but we might make a monarch out of you yet.
There was also a fist bump once.
They were like mid-twirl and about to run out the door.
Last scene, we are at the psych office. And Henry is there to pick up Shawn for their rescheduled weekend trip.
That's hilarious, Dad.
I'm swamped here. What's he doing? He's
Tetris.
Playing Tetris.
Sorry.
We get to this moment where Shawn is like, tell me the truth. Give me some man candor. Why did
candor, Shawn?
Why did you end up leaving the Monarchs?
Oh, okay. You want the man candor? Basically, Henry breaks down that he was getting his priorities right. Like, his marriage was in trouble. He needed to focus up because the Monarchs weren't what was important. Family was what was important.
He realized that the only real membership that mattered was family.
Shawn almost makes this noise. Psh.
And then we hear some hammering, and Shawn and Henry walk out, and Gus is actually hanging Shawn and Henry's portraits on the wall of the psych office.
Yeah, we grabbed these on our way out of the lodge.
We didn't want to be members of a club that Lassie was a member of.
And then Henry's gazing wistfully at his own portrait, and Shawn kind of offers it to him, and he's like, no, you should keep it. That way, I'm always here to keep an eye on you.
Shawn just smiles and the episode ends.
And we, like, just see a picture of the two Spencer men on the wall. It's very cute.
It is.
I love the way that ended that.
That's a feel-good episode.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is like, Guster got his groove back. Henry prioritizes life. Shawn does something nice for Lassiter. Just all around. Good episode.
Love it. I love that. It was very man-heavy. Like, Juliet was the only female in it, and we only got a mention of Lassiter's ex. There was no Chief. There was no Buzz. Yeah, it was a very man episode. With the highmost patriarch of all things.
So, question about the Monarch Lodge, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Were there any non-white members?
Not that I... Okay, wait. Yes. Okay, so I saw a portrait that was a non-white man in a portrait.
Okay.
And then there was a person standing amongst the doctors at one point who could have been of a different...
non-white race?
I was gonna say, like census group. I don't...
Okay.
I'm like... If you're asking, like, for... Like, I don't know, but he wasn't a pasty white dude.
Okay. Those puppies you hear in the background are Kaylee's puppies, because I am super allergic to them.
I think, I think my person got home and they freaked out on him.
That's fair. You were just talking. I didn't want to stop you, and I was just like, I'm just gonna address the fact that there's dogs in the background and then leave it in.
I don't think I have anything else written.
This is another one of those episodes that really highlights the growing relationship between Henry and Shawn. And I appreciate these episodes a lot. I just do. I just like that we are continuing to watch that growth. And eventually it gets to a really real spot. But right now we're still watching those little moments where Henry's only reaction is anger and frustration. And then we get those moments like that final scene where, no, I think it should stay here so I can always keep an eye on you. And I don't know, it's just beautiful. Also, I have a portrait of my grandma. Oh, well, you remember creepy grandma from my parents' house.
I never called her creepy grandma,
okay,
but I know the portrait that you are referring to.
And then I have a portrait of my grandmother that hangs in our house as well. And I quite enjoy that. Aww. I'm just like, this is nice. I like that idea of Shawn having something there to remember where he came from.
And know who's looking over his shoulder all the time.
And is also a fun sucker who wouldn't let them have a childhood club without rules.
I mean, I think that's part of the reason I surrounded myself with, like, fictional detectives. I'm like, yes, be near me always.
I love that. If we don't have anything else... I'm Alexis, hold it, fold it, skim it, crouching tiger, zookeeper's boy, hairdresser on fire, girlfriend in a cloma, slap it on a biscuit.
And I'm Kaylee. Come on, somebody tickle me with a feather. You.
And this has been...
To the Blueberry! Psych out.